Okay, so before we kick things off, I think it's important to get a few things out of the way. If you've been following this channel from the very beginning, you may have noticed that I've done a few Let's Plays on some Senran Kagura games. However, during my Estival vs. Let's Play, 4 of the parts were hit with age restrictions, and I refused to have this channel nuked with age restrictions getting in the way. So I decided it'd be best to remove these Let's Plays from my channel. Now, despite me removing those Let's Plays, I did say that I plan on reconstructing them into their own respective reviews. And, well, here we are. But instead of waiting for months to get all these reviews done, I decided to dedicate an entire month to Senran Kagura, seeing that we're months away from its 15th anniversary. And despite the state the franchise is in, I still love it with all my heart, and I want to give it the love and respect it deserves. Also, another thing too, I won't be covering Shinobi Versus during this month as I do not have a PS Vita emulator, and I don't know which one's the best to use. I'll tell you what, if possible, I might review the Steam version in the future. Same with Estival Versus, because recording on the PS5 is absolutely not an option due to how awful the graphics have become, and I don't see Marvelous fixing that anytime soon. I also won't be going over Senran Kagura 2 Deep Crimson since this month is already booked for these 2 games, Burst Renewal and Peach Beach Splash. There's also a special Senran Kagura video that I've saved for later this month, so stay tuned for that. I promise I'll go over the other Senran Kagura games for another time. For now, it's time to kick off the month of Senran Kagura, so strap yourselves in because this is the Senran March Madness. The series was created by Kenichiro Takagi, who started as a game design director for a game called Red Ninja End of Honor. And how did that turn out? Well, pretty bad in terms of receptions. However, Takagi would end up joining the company Marvelous in 2006. And throughout his time in Marvelous, he would be involved in a few games. 2 games that he produced would be from the To Love Ru series, and I love To Love Ru, can't get enough of it. It's easily my favorite edgy anime of all time. He would also help review 3 games based on the anime series Ikitosen, but in 2011, after getting the inspiration from Ikitosen, Takagi would end up creating a series that would forever change his life. And that is Senran Kagura, a series focused on groups of strong, powerful, and voluptuous female shinobi from different factions. And the first game to flagship this franchise was Senran Kagura Portrait of Girls. Here we have the main protagonist of the series, Asuka. She's a second year at Hanzo Academy and is the granddaughter of Hanzo, the founder of Hanzo Academy. Her shinobi outfit strikes some very obvious similarities to the uniforms of To Love Ru and Ikitosen. And despite being the leader of the group, she's actually the shortest of the 5. And yes, she's not alone for the ride, as she's joined by her 2 seniors and 2 juniors. Ikaruga being the class representative, as well as a 3rd year in Hanzo. Though what's also cool is that she shares the same voice actress with Newal from the Neptunia series, which made his debut just 1 year before Senran Kagura. There's Katsuragi, also a 3rd year, and is my personal favorite of the 5, because 1, she's a blondie, 2, she has a really large rack, and 3, she's the biggest pervert in the series, just like 2 certain perverts in the Love Live series. Here's a little fun fact for all you newbies out there. During the development of the series, Katsuragi was going to be the main protagonist of Hanzo, but because of the similarities with the main character of Ikitosen, Sonzaku, they didn't want to risk a lawsuit, so they went with Asuka as the main character. There's Yagyu, a quiet and stoic first year in Hanzo who has a sister complex thanks to her friendship with Hibari, another first year in Hanzo who's very innocent and cheerful, and she's also Takagi's favorite character in the series. So yeah, that's the 5 main girls of Senran Kagura, so I think it's about time we jump right into the games themselves. Now, I would go over Portrait of Girls since it's the first game in the main series, but it's Japan only. Plus, I don't think it's necessary since the story carries over to Burst, which is a remastered version of Portrait of Girls, despite it being a second game in the series. However, I won't be going over Burst either, but instead the 3D remake of the game, which is Burst Renewal for the PS4 and Steam. And that leads into the elephant in the room. Senran Kagura Burst Renewal was released on February 22nd, 2018 in Japan. However, this would be the first Senran Kagura game to run into some censorship by Sony. Because of their shitty censorship policy, the Western release was delayed in order to remove intimacy mode from the PS4 version, with the Steam version being intact. This was a bit of a bummer, but at least everything else didn't get affected. And because this was out of Marvelous control, I'm willing to cut them some slack. So let's not waste any time and get the story out of the way. When writing the script for this video, I didn't know how I could tackle this monster of a story. Burst Renewal is split into 2 different campaigns centered on Hanzo and Hebijo. Each of them can take less than 10 hours to complete, and I do admire the way they approach the cutscenes in this game. Very different from the previous Senran Kagura games. But if I were to summarize the story in the quote, quickest way, it's a feud between good and evil shinobi. Let's get Hanzo's side out of the way. The main focus is that they would encounter the Hebijo team. Each member will have their rivalries, and some of them can be relatable. But they ended up losing twice to Hebijo, with the second time ended with Yagyu getting shot by Mirai from afar, leaving her in critical condition due to the bullet being poisonous. You can just see the guilt in Hibari's face. She's really freaking out on the inside after what happened. So much so that she's willing to get it back in blood for Yagyu, only for her to get tricked by Haruka and lose the super secret ninja art scroll. I mean, at least she tried, right? This is also where we learn about Homura's past and how she joined Hebijo. So when she was a middle schooler, she had a crush on a college student named Komichi, who was her tutor. Well, turns out he was an evil ninja and tried to kill Homura. Seriously, he was ordered into killing her, and instead of doing so really quickly, he wanted her to feel betrayed. What a beat to the itch. This would cause Homura to snap, brutally beating the shit out of the little shit. However, this would ruin her chances at being a good shinobi despite defending herself against an evil shinobi. And to add to it, she was disowned by her parents. With nowhere to go, she was approached by a woman who offered her a chance to enroll in Hebijo as an evil shinobi. Good thing she had somewhat of a good ending. And later in the story, Katsuragi would reunite with her dog Chaco. He then leaves her to where her parents are. Despite this, she chose not to reunite with them after understanding what they did. After failing a mission, they were ordered to take their own lives, but they refused and would end up leaving Katsuragi behind in order to protect her. She realized that by reuniting with them, it would put them at risk. So instead, she insists on becoming a top shinobi so that she can get them pardoned and they could live as a family together. That's some very unfortunate stuff, but may I ask, why the hell is Asuka treating her enemy to dinner at a family sushi shop? I get that she returned her wallet, but this is the same team that almost killed Yagyu, stole one of her scrolls, and had Hibari temporarily join their side. I'm just saying, if my enemy does any of that shit to my team, we are not friends. And yeah, as it turns out, there are 2 super secret ninja art scrolls. Hebijo stole the Yang scroll, but Hanzo still has the Yin scroll, which is now safe in Asuka's hands as she trains to master it, with the others going through their own training arcs, each mastering and improving their own strengths. Now standing in their way are all 5 Hebijo elites, taking them on in one-on-one battles. Katsuragi winning against Hikage and having her finally express her true feelings. However, Hikage would end up drinking poison, as it's stated that a Hebijo student must carry and consume poison after losing to another school. And so Hikage would express her sadness about not being able to talk to Kat again, dying afterwards. That's some very unfortunate shit. Hibari faces off against Haruka yet again and acknowledges their friendship before beating her once and for all. She then returns Haruka's Hebijo notebook and tells her that she enjoyed their time together before advancing forward. Haruka also acknowledges their friendship before drinking her poison and dying in the process. Yomi reveals to Ikaruga that her parents died due to poverty and became an orphan. She saw Ikaruga's adopted dad donated to the poor overseas, but not his own country. Feeling envious towards Ikaruga and her family, that's when Yomi declares an uprising. So soon after losing to Ikaruga, Yomi explains that the reason her parents died is because they sold their lives to leave her an inheritance. She then donated it to all the children in the slums. Feeling relieved that Ikaruga shows no pity towards her, Yomi drinks her poison and dies with no regrets, saying that she'll see her parents again. Right when Yagyu was about to shoot Homura, Mirai intervenes, leading to a duel between the two. And just when Yagyu won the fight and fires at Homura, Mirai jumps in front of the shot, sacrificing herself to protect Homura. She then reveals to Yagyu that the reason she despised being ignored was due to her being bullied by the other kids by ignoring her when she was a kid. But Yagyu respects Mirai for risking her life to protect Homura, and before Mirai gives into her fatal injury, she acknowledges Yagyu for watching her in her final moments. Now leading to the final battle between Asuka and Homura, and damn is Homura pissed knowing that her friends were killed. Now she plans on avenging her fallen comrades, and after losing to Asuka, Homura was not having it, now pulling out her red sword. The two would each use their scrolls to power up to their ultimate forms and fight once again, with Asuka taking the victory yet again. Homura acknowledges Asuka as her friend before dying, But that wouldn't last for long as the roof collapses and Asuka sees Homura and the other Hebijo elites engulfed in purple gas and rubble, which would become a monster known as Orochi, the embodiment of Hebijo's hatred. But Asuka ends up defeating it in the end, saving both her team and the Hebijo elites. The day is saved and Asuka calls out to Homura saying she'll get stronger and they'll meet again. And she wasn't lying when she said they'll meet again. Okay, I didn't think this would take a while to get through, but I did find the story to be somewhat engaging. It's just taking burst and remaking it into a shiny coat of paint. I've had my time going through Hanzo's story, and if you think I'm going to cover Hebijo's story in full, hell no. This video is already 10 minutes long and I don't see any point in going through it. It's their perspective on the story, as well as going through the early stages of Hebijo and how all 5 of them met. I do want to point out a few highlights from Hebijo's story though, like when Homura was a loose cannon as a first year. Seriously, what a dirty mouth she had on her. Or when Haruka triggered a bunch of classmates into fighting Mirai just so she can make new friends. That had me laughing my ass off because what sick bitch would do something like that? Actually, coming from Haruka, I'm not surprised given how she was raised. Back when Haruka was living with her parents, she had quite the unstable relationship with them. Her dad, being a doctor, was a man whore who often had a bunch of affairs, while her mom would put all the attention onto her, often giving her everything she wants and even controlling her and dressing her up in many different outfits, literally treating her like her own personal doll. This led to Haruka finally snapping at one point and getting ready to set her whole house on fire with both her parents inside. But Rin intervened and would teach her the art of puppetry. She would use the tools given to her to manipulate her dad into confessing to both his tax evasion and medical malpractice, effectively turning himself into the police. Afterwards, she ends up enrolling in Hebijo Academy. While not a tragic backstory, it was still sad to see how much of an environment Haruka was in. And can I also say that I love the interactions between Hikage and Katsuragi, especially at the end, because seeing Hikage genuinely smile for the first time was a very wholesome moment. Being able to see the perspective of Hebijo really adds more context to the story. Both sides have their moments, and it's cool to see how they've become the shinobi we all know and love. But this wouldn't be a video game review if I didn't talk about the gameplay. So let's put on our school uniform and see what's up. Senran Kagura Burst Renewal does away with the 2.5D side-scrolling gameplay and replaces it with the hack and slash gameplay from Estival Versus. You press the square button to deliver normal attacks, and you press the triangle button to do stronger attacks. You can also do an aerial raid by pressing the circle button the moment after sending the mooks flying. You can even hold down the circle button on the ground to move faster. Of course, attacking enemies will depend on which character's gameplay you enjoy the most. I did enjoy playing as Asuka, and I like Katsuragi's high energy kicks, but Yagyu didn't really click for me, and aside from the delightful butt punch, I don't see myself playing as Hibari that much compared to the other 3. Her gameplay isn't bad, but I just mostly prefer playing as Asuka, Ikaruga, and Kat. But they're not the only ones you can play as. There's also Homura and her team. And if I'm being honest, I mostly enjoyed playing as Homura and Haruka out of the 5. Mirai, I'm pretty mixed on. Attacking a rival boss seems fine. Attacking a bunch of enemies is not. I wasn't pretty keen on Yomi's playstyle, but Hikage is fine to play as. I did get a kick out of her Berserker phase. However, the best character in this game to play as in both Renewal and Estival Versus is Rin. She's sexy as fuck both as a teacher and in her shinobi form. And her attacks are goddamn disgusting. Being able to rack up in an obnoxious combo with just one move alone is insanely awesome. I love playing as Rin in both Renewal and Estival Versus. By pressing the L1 and R1 buttons together, you'll activate Frantic Mode. But unlike Estival Versus, you can't go Frantic Mode mid-battle. You have to activate it each time before a mission. Doing so will increase your strength, but the downside is that you'll take even more damage, so I personally don't use it that much. However, if you're low on health while in base form, you can activate your Shinobi transformation. This transforms a Shinobi uniform into their Shinobi form, and it can differ from each character, from Hibari having a light pink jacket with booty shorts, to Katsuragi in her unbuttoned shirt letting her tickle bitties hang out. But if we're talking about Haruka's Shinobi form, easily one of the hottest forms in the series. I mean, the lab coat, the pink and white lingerie-like outfit, and just seeing the bottom half of her naughty pillows, just... oh, I love Haruka's form. She's easily my favorite character in this game, and it's easily my 3rd favorite character overall. I find Homo's Shinobi form to be lame, honestly. It's the exact same Hebijo uniform. Thankfully, she gets a new Shinobi form after leaving Hebijo and becoming a renegade. But it doesn't just change the character's appearance, no, it also increases their strength as well. And it allows them to use their secret ninja arts. Each character has 3, with the third one being the ultimate ninja art. Doing these will do more damage to your enemies, but you have to make sure you're facing the enemy, otherwise you'll run the risk of wasting a ninja art. Because let me tell you, nothing infuriates me more than a goddamn enemy moving out of the way the moment I'm using my damn ultimate ninja art. That can get so goddamn frustrating. So it's best to use it at the right time. Burst Renewal also introduces a new mechanic called the burst gauge. By doing basic attacks, aerial waves, and strong attacks, you'll max out the burst gauge and activate burst mode. This not only increases your damage, but you can also do infinite aerial waves. And when it's depleted, it can cause an explosion that'll do a shitload of damage. And when an opponent's shinobi is defeated or close to the explosion, it'll trigger an attack animation that'll strike them butt ass naked. I love this kind of feature as it adds to the remarkable fan service. Burst mode is a really cool feature to use, adding more variety to the gameplay and can be useful against stronger enemies. However, the most iconic gameplay mechanic that is present in every Senran Kagura game is the costume destruction mechanic. When a shinobi takes a significant amount of damage, their layers of clothing will rip, lowering their endurance and defenses and causing them to take more damage. This mechanic is used in different ways depending on which game you play, but it just adds more enjoyment to the fan service, especially the animations, because the amount of booty jiggle I see on characters like Homo and Hibari is immaculate. Burst Renewal's gameplay overall is pretty fun, and the controls are fine as well. There will also be moments where you have to go up against other elite shinobi. For the most part, they seem fine, but almost every fight you have against an elite, they have super armor and will spam the same move over and over again. The worst has to be the fight against Ikaruga. This bitch does not know when to stop moving. It can get hella annoying wasting a ninja art because she moves way too much and she does the same damn moves over and over again. As a character, Ikaruga's fine. She's cute and wonderful. As a rival fight, she's infuriating. Then of course we have the 2 final boss fights. The first is from Hanzo's story. It has 4 phases to get through. The first 2 phases are pretty simple, nothing special. The same with the 3rd phase, except you have to take out every tentacle while avoiding their attacks. But the 4th phase is where things really turn up, as Orochi can launch a powerful laser beam, and if you're in the range, then the laser beam will take a shitload of your health bar. So you'll need to be in the air above its head to avoid the attack, while also attacking the head to deal extra damage, is what I do. The second one is, believe it or not, Haruka. Homura has to take on all 4 of her friends that are being controlled by Orochi while inside the monster, with Haruka being the last one to take on. It was a bit difficult, but it's that kind of challenge I can get by. Each of the 2 story modes have 5 chapters for you to go through, with both ending with final fights against Daidoji and Rin. There's also extra missions you can do outside the story mode. Doing both will level up characters individually, as well as both frantic and shinobi modes. While intimacy mode may be gone from the PS4 version, at least there's diorama mode. You can choose which background you want, as well as individual poses for each character. I don't really use this mode that much, so I apologize if I'm not going too deep into this mode. And that also goes for Estival Versus and Peach Bee Splash. There's also a shop where you can buy certain items like illustrations, music, and other stuff. And there's even a gallery where you can check out all the content that you bought. I love seeing these illustrations carry over to the modern age of Senran Kagura. Shoutouts to Yagashi Nan as they're responsible for the artwork. The music in this game, however, doesn't compare to the other games, but it's still some good stuff to listen to. The presentation is also fine, lip syncing is on point, voice acting is good, cutscenes play differently from the previous games. I admire how they're able to shake things up differently and are able to succeed in the end. And graphically, it's nothing special, it's the same animation style from Estival Versus and PBS, which is a good thing honestly. Burst Renewal also has DLC, so if you want to play as your favorite shinobi from guessing a new Hebijo, you can do so. If you bought the digital deluxe edition like I did, you'll have access to Yumi and her story campaign. You can also play through Miyabi's story campaign as well if you bought her. I haven't bought any of the DLC other than Yumi, but maybe in the future. Senran Kagura Burst Renewal is a game that I had a good time with, and it's something I can go back to. If you're looking to get into the series, Burst Renewal isn't a bad start. Regrettably, you sort of lose that spark and impact if you already played Estival Versus, Both games do share the same gameplay, so if you already played Burst and Estival, I don't think there's a reason for you to get the game other than being a diehard fan of the series. But if none of that bothers you, then you'll have a good time with the game. Senran Kagura Burst Renewal gets an 8 out of 10, a solid hack and slash game with amazing fan service. This is actually the last Senran Kagura game that Takagi worked on before leaving Marvelous in 2019, and given how journalists, tourists, and woke companies are pushing for censorship and agendas, I can't really blame the man, but I wish him the best at what he's doing. With all that being said, thank you all so much for watching, and tune in next time as the Senran March Madness continues with the next game on the list, which will be Senran Kagura PBS. Until then, this is Star the Protagonist signing out. As always, Goki Genyo, and have a star-tastic day, everyone. If you enjoyed today's video, then be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and turn those notifications on to join the Star Nation. Also, be sure to follow my Twitter, and while you're at it, check out my previous video. Now.